Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing very well today. Thank you so much for joining us in this panel discussion. I am Gautam Rajpal and I will be your host and moderator for the evening. This is the first panel discussion for the Cyber Blog India's 2022 conference titled Abuse and Harassment in Cyberspace Beyond the Perceived Notions of Mainstream. The objectives of this conference are to initiate discussion on the threats faced by the LGBTQIA plus community members on the internet, to facilitate sharing of niche stories and first-hand experience of community members, to raise awareness about the challenges faced by the community while dealing with the cybercrime incident. Over the last 6 weeks, the Cyberblog India team has hosted 12 Instagram live sessions with the individual panelists. These live sessions are finally culminating into two panel discussions. The first has already happened. The second one we are having today, which is the first one we are having today, and the second one will be tomorrow on the 24th at the same time. Before we go any further, I would like to take this moment to briefly introduce what the Cyberblog India is and what the team does. Starting in 2014, the Cyberblog India has invested in multiple ways to create a cyber safe tomorrow for India. The team runs a national award-winning blog with avid readers from across the globe. The team was one of the first organizations to utilize WhatsApp as a platform for helpline and assisting the victims. In the duration that the Cyberblog India has been operational, the team has conducted 450 plus workshops and webinars on the internet safety, digital citizenship, cybercrime awareness, and careers in cyberspace. Further, the team has provided legal assistance and advisory services in more than 12,500 cybercrime cases, including financial frauds, blackmailing, cyberbullying, identity theft, revenge pornography, and many more. As we delve into our panel discussion today, I would like to alert our community that please be humane in the chat box. And the conversation in the live session could be triggering. So please do not watch this if you feel you're not ready for it. Post our session, we'll add support groups on our Instagram handle at @incyberblog. You can reach out for help. Today, I am joined by 5 amazing individuals from different walks of life. Thank you, first of all, everyone, for joining this panel discussion today. Before we dive into the panel discussion, I'll take the opportunity to introduce our panel members. First, we have Patruni Sastry, a gender non-conforming drag artist, a top performer in Pink News, and the founder of Dragvanti, a dedicated space for drag artists in India. We are joined by Nu, who identifies as a disabled queer person. Nu is the founder and editor-in-chief of Revival Disability magazine, a magazine focusing on disability, sexuality, and intersectional ableism. We also have Manak Matiyani. Manak is a feminist, queer activist, and development professional. He is currently an executive director at the YP Foundation. The next panelist on the panel is Damini Sinha, a software engineer by profession and an activist, author, and public speaker by passion. We are also joined by Hiten Noonwal, a gender fluid performance artist, design educator, cosplayer, and fashion designer known for their avant-garde style. And finally, you have me. I'm Gautam Rajpal, your moderator for the evening. I'm a computer science graduate and business owner based out of Rishikesh. With this, we are all set for the discussion. I request our audience to join us through the chat box and send their questions as they have. If you have any relevant questions that you would like to ask a specific panelist, I request you to write their names in the comments and then quote your questions. So let's begin. I would like to start off the conversation by saying that when one opens up by their true self on the internet, when they open up about their queer lives on internet, there are instances where people have an adverse reaction to your experience. This leads to trolling, hate comments, unsolicited DMs, and many more. How do you think all of this affects a queer individual? I want to have two different perspectives from you guys. The first is how online trolling, hate comments, and unsolicited DMs and so on affects a queer individual physically and mentally. And in the second part, I also want to discuss the online world. Also, has a lot of impact on our real life relationships. Could be our romantic relationships, our relationship with our parents, our relationship with our friends. How does it impact that? How does trolling and hate comments they impact a queer individual? So let's begin with how it impacts a queer individual physically and mentally. This question is actually open for grabs. Anybody who wants to take the opportunity to speak on this can go ahead and take the mic. Do you want to begin, Hiten? Oh yeah, Damini ma'am. Yeah, please go ahead. I believe Damini ji, your mic is not.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm so sorry for that.
perfect.
Yeah, I was muted. So mentally and physically, I definitely it is because it is mentally highly disappointing and depressing for anyone who is emotional. Like me, I was very emotional. I'm a transgender woman, and whole life I have seen lots of discrimination. It's in my world, in my school, college, everywhere. So when I came on social media and the internet, then even a small comment which is not so pleasurable for me was affecting me very much. So because of that, and if nobody is there with you, you are alone, then definitely it is affecting a lot. And being emotionally not so strong, I was literally thinking for only for one sentence. I was taking 3 to 4 days to come out of it, and sometime I was thinking like I should not live. What is the goal of my life? And suicidal thoughts and so many things were there. But going through other people who motivated, like let them, they answered and they said like let them say whatever they want to, and psychiatric treatment which is required before transitioning from male to female. So these things helped me. But before this, whatever I experienced, it was really very bad. And one should be very headstrong when entering in the world of cyber and internet. If you're going to share your daily life or any whatever your needs is, so be ready for these things. Like in the normal life, I am very much habitual of whispering and um, staring. So same way on the internet, I am first. I am ready and I'm prepared for that. Definitely, I'm gonna be trolled on this section. So let's get ready for. Let's get mentally and physically definitely. Otherwise, I can't work on the area I work. So yeah, it affects a lot. That's all from my end.
Anyway, thank you for considering this a safe space to consider to discuss your depression with us. Anybody else who would like to discuss about something that they went through, an instance where they went through, or some of their friends went through something physical? Because I believe for every queer person, they do have to go through a certain mental trauma. I think that's the part and particle of a queer life, uh, because we are far from acceptance. Let's face it. But I do also want to throw some light on any physical impacts that any of the panelists or their friends have gone through, if they can share an instance. Right? No, Patruni? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think this is my experience as a person was a little bit kind of different because I had to come out multiple times on my social media, and coming out process was itself a lot of things which usually happens. And one of the instances which actually happened was, this was again as a part of a dating site which I was involved in to kind of get romantic or partnership, or sexual partnership at one point in time. And I still remember there was a time that somebody without a known experience kind of coming ahead and asked me to share a couple of pictures. And when I said that, when I shared my pictures, trusting the other person, this person dials down into my intercom, which I'm living in a residence or a hostel, and asked me to pay a certain kind of an amount in order to shut them off, or in order to kind of protect myself. And they were also threats like, we'll come down to your house and we'll kind of put these pictures outside, or we kind of target you in a certain way. So I think that was one of the experience which was an alternate effect of I'd say it's cyberbullying. And at that point in time, I still realized, I was aware about what are my rights, and I was aware about how to deal with such kind of a situation because of the conversations which I was having at that point in time. So we went back, and I directly walked into a police station. I said, like, this is what happened with me, without having a hinge of doubt for myself. Like, if you have a doubt or if you have a fear, that's when the other person would also start doubting you, or kind of putting you or taking time or space, and trying to kind of bully you. But I think I went ahead directly without having any kind of I would say without any having any kind of doubt, self doubt on myself. And I told the policeman that this is what is happening. It's nothing which I should be ashamed of, and I haven't done anything which is wrong. So, but the person who was doing it was wrong. And then that point in time, there was a lot of involvement. Like, there was a lot of protest. I still remember going to this person's house and seeing what is his living standards, or where exactly he's living, and what exactly meant him to do such a thing, or kind of cause that kind of bullying. So I think that was one of the experience. Secondly, it might be physical, or it might be it's a mix of both. Online, like when I came out as a bisexual person, and then when I kind of called out my bisexuality with involvement of romantic relationship with a woman, that was a time when I realized that there was a lot of biphobia which is there within the society. And it was counter situation as well, because there were a lot of trolls, not only for me but also for my partner, time and again. And we kind of every day we used to wake up with 10 or 15 people kind of pointing out, and sometimes it's your dear friends. And that is that is a kind of a problem which I could say. And uh, which had an effects as well. Like, there were a lot of spaces which I was kind of called out for, or I was taken off from performance opportunities, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the ways of how we see bullying happens within the cyberspace. And what we need to understand is, we need to be not we should not be fearful of something, that we should be kind of knowing our rights, and kind of acknowledging that, and kind of ready to fight for any
I'm
kind of a
sorry to
battle.
cut you in between, Patruni, but that's going to be my next question. Let's not cut this panel discussion short. I will be asking you questions about how to deal with such scenarios. So this is just a part to kickstart the conversation. Uh, so we'll come to that later on, about how to deal with such scenarios, right? I hope I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just that that's going to be my next question. So I want to put perspective for our listeners and viewers right now, so that they can relate to it in a proper hierarchy. And moving on to the next part of the same question, the second phase that I wanted to discuss with was, yes, hi.
Yes, I also want to share my experience. So, in 2018, when I was working with Ritu Kumar, I thought I will live around the office. And then I was looking for flats. And like I was using Facebook, I was also using WhatsApp. So, my profile picture, I have long hair. And also, it was written that I am a free bird. So these dealers, brokers, they were like, आपने कैसा फोटो लगा रखा है, आपके तो लंबे बाल हैं और वो आपने लिखा है कि आप फ्री बर्ड हो. So they took it in a wrong way. They thought I am somebody else. I mean, I am presenting myself in something else, and they did not get the meaning of free bird, and how I can keep my hair long. And they were like, you are also not wearing a top. So, and I was like, what's wrong with that? There are a lot of guys who put their images, with their bare bodies. And if I have long hair, why can't I put a picture like that? And they were like, we won't be able to give you the room or the flat because they said it because you are from the queer community. And I was like, so what? I mean, it doesn't mean that I won't get a space to live because of my picture or because of the tagline that I have written. So I faced a lot of difficulty to get the room actually, to get the space. And this was one of the incident. And I was like, I'm not going to cut down my hair because they say that I look queer. I am. This is who I am. And yeah, but it took a lot of time, but finally I got a space. So this
I
was
really
my
respect that,
experience.
that
Yes,
you chose to live your truth, and that you
yes,
didn't really care what the society thought about your hair or your outlook on life, and
yes.
you just chose to be you, the real you. But I would also request the panel to just stick to questions. It's a very humble request because the first question was how online trolling affects a queer person. And I do appreciate you sharing your stories and life experiences, but please try to relate your experiences to the question asked, and that'll be great because what that does is it helps our viewers to relate to what we are saying in a better fashion. And that's exactly what the motive is of this panel discussion, is to get through to more viewers and more listeners. So let's stick to questions. All right. Moving on to the next question, I would say that I think at some point in our lives, we have definitely all been trolled or have received hateful comments on social media. Um, and I believe being queer is that's kind of a byproduct. Like if you are queer, then you are definitely going to get hate, and because of the presence of social media and how vast it is, and how apparent it is in today's world, I believe it's become all the more easy for faceless profiles, for people who hide behind mask behind fake profiles and fake pictures. It has become so much easier for them to get through to us and shove their hate inside our lives. So I believe all of us have gone through that, and all of us have our own ways to cope with online trolling and online hate, right? So next, I want to discuss, now that we have already established a few stories, a few experiences of online trolling and stuff. I want to ask the panel about their own possible coping mechanisms. Like, what are your coping mechanisms that you've come up with? And since two of the speakers on the panel have not spoken yet, so I'll give this question to Manak.
Uh, Thanks. I think so. I want to just place out there that I'm probably, in terms of how identities play out on social media, right? I come with a lot of privilege. So being a male person who is cisgender, male presenting, passes from a certain caste, from a certain class, with a certain language, it is. I'm the most unlikely, perhaps, in this set to face, and I don't have personal experience of facing a lot of hate comments or trolling. Also, because my social media is not big enough to get that kind of attention. Right? I do work with an organization where we have done work on queer rights issues as well as on issues of just masculinities, and saying something simple like reject toxic masculinity. Got a lot of trolling and hate comments from men, particularly, to say how can you call masculinity toxic? So I think a lot of times what I realize right now in dealing with trolling and hate comments online is that as people who have arrived at a certain kind of liberal perspective now and are trying to articulate that online, it's a very thin, precarious line, particularly for people who are running social media handles for awareness. Right, between people who have already come some way with us and got a certain kind of perspective, if you're not pushing the boundary, if you're not liberal or out there enough, then that audience will tell you you're not pushing it enough. And if you say something which is really out there, which is very liberal, then the people who've not come to that kind of understanding will say, what the hell is going on? And would perhaps troll you. And so sometimes you also find yourself stuck between those two things. And I think for a lot of trolling, which is mindless, which is just, they're saying things because out of anger, out of just showing somebody else down. My strategy has been organizationally as well as with people who I've worked with to help through these situations, has been to just not respond to trolls. After a point of time, there is only so much energy that you have. And it is very important to be able to assess when you can have a conversation with somebody who is trying to engage and trying to understand, and when it is somebody who's just trying to spew hate and you want to just not deal with that because you don't take on the burden of educating everybody or trying to convert everybody online. It can't happen. So I think recognizing what I can't convert online and shutting down that conversation, not putting in that energy from your own side, is an important part of dealing with trolling and hate comments online. So that's what I would say.
I also want to answer this.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
Manak. I would say that you put forward a very good point that you need to kind of differentiate between whose opinion matters and whose doesn't, right? People who are close to you, people who actually are a part of your life. If they say something, then you take that into account, and if it's just random haters and random people throwing shit at you, then you just ignore it. And I agree with that point. But we're all humans at the end of the day, and sometimes even still, I would say, since I am quite open, like I don't really hide my identity at all. I still get a lot of hate, and it has happened to my face more often than not that people have said stuff, and it does affect me somewhere or the other. I do try to, reflect the hate if it's not an important person, if it's not a person who's actually a part of my life, but it's still kind of somewhere deep down. It does, you know, affect you. So, Hiten, since you wanted to take the question, I would ask, what
Yes, sir.
what do you do in those situations, like specifically in those situations where somebody is saying stuff to you on your face and not really on Instagram and on social media platforms, but what do you do when people do it in your vicinity?
I just try to ignore them because I don't think that there is any use of arguing with them. So I ignore them, and what I do, I go home, I create an artwork of that energy. So it's like whatever happens with me, I come back with the art, I create artwork, I do my photo shoot. So last year, a lot of people they were trolling me, in like it was a group trolling. So what I did 31-day image creation challenge. So for 31 days, like in August, day one, like August 1 and 31st August, I created 31 images every day. So this is how I deal with the online trolling. I come up with art, I use that energy, and I reflect back with my energy. This is what I do.
That is actually a great advice, because uh, I've actually always seen people saying that you take the anger, you channelize it, and then you create art out of it, and you're actually doing that. So that's incredible. Uh, and how do you, in such a space where online presence is so much important now, like everybody has become a brand, right? Everybody has
Yes,
become something to be promoted on social
yes.
media. Like, even when we look at ourselves, even when we look at our digital images, right? uh, what kind of a personality do we project on social media? We have kind of become brands ourselves, and we are all promoting ourselves in some way or the other, right? In that case, how do you uh, educate, and how do you make it a better space for people? No,
So
would you
what
like?
I do,
Yeah. No, since you've not spoken yet,
okay,
I would. Do
yes.
you want to take that question up? Like, how do you make sure that you're doing your part, you're playing your part in educating people around you through
Okay.
social media?
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Right now I like to talk about the datafication of sexuality. As in when our bodies become data, where does that leave us? How do we as marginalized genders exist on the internet? So how do we look at our experiences within the larger context of data? How do we take up space, which is very important, and which revival disability community really lays emphasis on? How do we, as disabled queer people, take up space on the internet? how do we revive, malintended, a disabled internet, right? And how do we find belonging, community, individuality within internet space, within a world where there are able-bodied mandates of everything, of communication, of productivity, of freedom, independence, love, right? Dating. If you see, um, if you see reels, for example, I think I mentioned this on my live also. So like there's a certain aesthetic, an able-bodied aesthetic. You have to move in a certain way. A trend is created by movement, by moving in a certain way. So how do you counteract that ableism, right? How do we look at lived experiences within online spaces, like Manak said with regards to caste, class, disability, and sexuality, positioning myself as disabled, non-binary, and queer, yes, but also upper caste and Savarna, right? So definitely I'm privileged over others, right? So, which identities are welcomed inside internet charm circles and which identities are gatekept. So, for example, I like to introduce this by putting your attention to a norm called digital ableism online. So, ableism in cyberspace, for example, name calling disabled bodies, calling our disabilities ugly, weird, or strange. So my friend Sam, she has a disabled hand. I have a disabled hand too, and so a lot of times because of our curved fingers, and because we are assigned female at birth, our hands are called witchy. Witchy hands. So how do we embrace that witchy hand? How do we take out that disabled anger? Disabled anger and marginalized anger is something that's really important. So even within revival, when I created revival, it was also after a lifetime of ableism. I created it at the age of 22, and that was after a lifetime of ableism bullying. Bullying was really subtle in school, for example. The bullying I faced was alienation, which is a really silent, subtle form of bullying. Most of the times, for example, I would gaslight myself because I would say, okay, are they really ignoring me? Is it because of my disability? Um, and so when I created Revival, it was a space for disabled creativity. It was without any able-bodied rules. It was where we can do whatever we please. Disabled queer folks existing in whichever way they desire, right? Um, so also patronization as a form of harassment. Um, the expectation to form or adhere to certain preconceived notions constantly. Um, right? How do we differentiate between, especially in disability, how do we differentiate between intrusiveness, curiosity, and genuine questions, right? When someone on a dating app asks me, just so the thing is that disabled women, um, um, female presenting, right, feminine presenting, on dating apps, we are seen as open books. Like we owe everyone information about ourselves because our disability is visible and out there, right, for everyone to see. So, for example, if there's a disabled woman on a wheelchair, then cis men will ask the disabled woman, how do you have sex,
I
right?
believe, to summarize,
And
I believe what you're trying to say is that we do enough of our part if we just make ourselves visible online, right? Like
Yeah.
if we just choose to live our truth without being afraid of it, we have done our part. Like that's work done, right? I believe that's what you're trying to say. If correct me if I'm wrong, no, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's a really good point actually. Like when people say that a lot of countries haven't yet done this stuff that needs to be done legally for queer people. I believe that's a part of it is also because of the fact that the people tend to be afraid. Like the reason why gay liberation movement, queer liberation movement was so early in the West was because of the fact that people chose to stop burying themselves under stones, and they chose to come out, and they chose to make themselves visible, and then they fought for their rights, right? So I believe that's a really good point. No, I really appreciate you coming forward with revival as well. It's you're doing amazing work, and kudos to you. I mean, for my next question, I want you all to rewind a little bit and go back to the time when you were still closeted, when you weren't out and proud, right? And back then, I believe for a lot of us, for personally me as well, social media wasn't really a huge thing, but it was existent, but it was not really as huge as it is today. And but even then, every now and then we would hear an instant of a hate crime against somebody who's from the queer community. So my next question is, how does online trolling, hate affect a closeted mind? And I want to direct this question to Damini ji. I want to know from your angle, like when you were not out, when you had not talked to people around you, and when you were still struggling with your own thoughts about transitioning, about your identity. How did hate around you affect you as a closeted person?
Uh, in this manner, I can share my most of the things were not related to uh, internet or cyberbullying, but I can tell you my own experience here. That whenever I was acting like a man, and I it was for a very long time. So if everywhere, school, college, and in office also, whenever we were going for some break, tea break or something, so definitely in school and colleges I have bullied for my feminine I was very effeminate, so that's why I was bullied, and so many things happened. And in office, when we were going for a tea break or somewhere, so definitely people were talking about LGBTQ, and they were definitely making a joke out of it, and I was being the part of it. I was not so strong. I was not telling anything, but I was laughing on their jokes. So it was really hurting me inside. And once I came on internet, I am on. I'm very active on Instagram at the period of this thing pandemic. So after that. One thing I can share, like I was closeted, and people were telling me that what kind of pictures you are putting. So I was coming out slowly. I was taking my treatment, and when I put my first picture, so my friends, my best friend, uh, he told me that what are you doing? You don't think about anyone. You are very selfish and everything, and you have to stop it. So this was really very hurting. But I tried to explain him, but he didn't listen to me. So that was the thing, and definitely when I was closeted, my best friend, always knew that I'm, I'm gay. He knew that I'm gay. I'm not transgender. So he was okay that I'm gay, but he was not okay that I'm a transgender. So I
So
have no connection, not at
I believe
all.
there is intersectionality in that too, right? Because sometimes people around you, they always tend to, I believe, even when I'm a moderator, I'm not supposed to share my stories, but I would
It's
still like to
okay.
put in this fact that, even when I used to discuss LGBTQ issues with my mom, she always used to say that, okay, yeah, I accept it, but I won't accept it if it's my own son. Like,
Yes, yes, yes.
it's
That's
this.
so true.
Yeah. So now I wanna bring Patruni in this conversation, and I wanna ask you, Patruni, when you were closeted, were you still active on social media?
So I think my first few years again was just to discover, what I was. As I never knew the definitions. Like I still remember there was Facebook at that point in time. We didn't had any other, social media for such. And I used to create a fake account and kind of try to meet or look out for queer things which are happening, or people when it was kind of coming.
Yeah.
Now when that thing happened, there were a lot of wrong choices which I could make, meeting people in a wrong space or wrong time, in a really scary space, and kind of walking out.
Right.
Those were some of the things which happened, and it was so confusing for me because I didn't know what exactly the sexuality, or what exactly the spectrum of sexuality was. It took me around 21 years to just figure that out. And still this point in time, yeah, I do know the definitions of it, but I don't see people should kind of stop looking at sexuality as a one tone definition. And I got to know about it only after 21 years, like once social media kind of came in, especially Instagram, for example, where we see a lot of content being shared which was not there at that point in time.
Right.
It definitely killed my adulthood, if I could say it in one way.
So during that time when you were still closeted and using social media, how did news online, how did hate crimes online against the queer community affect you as a closeted person? That's the question.
Yeah. So I think one, it definitely affected in any kind of, I was scared to kind of come out, because once I see, okay, there's a trans woman being killed in the same locality where I'm living in, and that is something which is coming. I still remember there were a lot of, at that time, there were, televisions which were hosting a lot of, series like Crime Patrol and all. And those were
Right.
the basic mediums through which they will tell queer stories, telling that, okay, there's this particular village where there are two, queer persons, or man and woman, or two man or two woman kind of, and how their family kind of killed them because they are queer. Trigger warning. So that is something. Those were some of the things which was the early on visibility or access of news which we used to get. And it always kind of helped. It always kind of made me that gulp in the fear, like and it was always a kind of a constant rejection as well, like when you want to be queer, but you see this kind of hate crimes in front of you, and you listen to these kind of news, it doesn't allow you to kind of come out. And I think that was the basic situation which I had. I hope
Right.
this answers the question.
Oh, that definitely does. I believe the one point that you mentioned is, I think, true to every queer life, is that there is always a constant delusion in your head. Like at some point, you feel very powerful. You feel like when you hear trolling and hate comments and stuff. On one hand, you feel like you have to empower the community. You have to make yourself more visible. You have to make use of the rights that the Constitution gives you. And then on the other hand, you're always like, oh, but this can happen to me too someday. Like I could be in the shoes of this person who this crime is being committed against, and that is not a welcoming thought, right? That is something that we would like to avoid at all costs as queer people. So that is I think still a part of our lives, even as out and proud individuals. I think we still go through all of that, and I think I would like to divert the conversation from what we can do as queer people on social media to what social media platforms can do for queer people, right? So we recently saw that Instagram introduced this feature where you could add your pronouns on your Instagram profiles, and it's still being rolled out in a lot of countries actually. But are social media platforms doing enough? And what are your opinions on this, Manak? Can you come in on this and tell me what you think about this?
Mm, Sure. I think a couple of things around this. I think what I see being done by social media platforms, particularly platforms like Facebook, etc., more than Instagram, even Instagram, whatever. I mean, it's all the same platform now. Is informing people about privacy settings, right? That seems to be the only response that social media platforms have to
Right.
protect people, to say that, okay, what is a setting, you make your profiles private. And more because of that, social media space is becoming like any other public space, any other physical public space, where everybody is responsible for their own safety. And if you feel that you're unsafe, then just don't go there, right? That's the same kind of response that social media platforms seem to have for people who are facing this kind of issue.
Right.
uh, I think we definitely need, and this is an ongoing thing in India, we definitely need much stronger privacy laws where, if I'm putting my whatever kind of pictures online, and if
Right.
somebody else is downloading them and sending me, or downloading them and circulating them, what is the control and what is the IPR, for example, that I need to have over my own content, my own photo, which will allow me to actually stop somebody else circulating my photos out of context, or stop using my photos for anything online, right? I think that's the kind of legal protection system that we need to move to, which does not stigmatize somebody for being online or for posting something, but actually gives more control to the person who's posting content to direct how people will engage with that content on their own page. All right, I think that is one. The other thing that I think social media platforms should do is take complaints. So if somebody is repeatedly putting comments on my platform, right, take complaints about my platform very serious, against somebody very seriously. I think the first step that they do is I can block somebody from coming to my platform. The next step should be to actually put some monitoring on that person's activity, because that person is probably spreading hate on multiple platforms. And I think some filter of that kind on somebody who's repeatedly being hateful and vile online should be an organized response from social media platforms and platform anchors. I think most of these platforms do have policy groups. They, if you know somebody in that group, you can get something done. But the automated systems for recognizing hate comments and responding to them seem to be very geared towards actually making vulnerable groups even more vulnerable.
Right.
And that's the problem, I think. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for others to add as well.
Yeah. But for example, like you know, when during COVID times, we all saw how there were these posts. If any post was even remotely connected to COVID in any way, there used to be a warning on that post, right?
Yes.
Which kind of makes any marginalized community, any oppressed community, feel like this could have been done against hate towards us, but it hasn't been done yet. When it can be implemented for something medical, it's all right, but the same can be done towards hate against
Yes.
us, right? I believe Patruni wishes to add something here. Patruni, would you like to add something? You're on mute, I guess. It's all right. I believe Patruni is having some technical issues. Yes, Nu, we are discussing about how Instagram recently came up with this feature where you can add your pronouns on Instagram, right? So we were just discussing, we just not diverged, we just diverted our conversation from what a queer person can do online to what social media platforms can do for us. So, what do you think social media platforms can do for queer people specifically? Like, what other features or what other rollouts can they present to help queer people to fight against hate, to fight against, to just maybe be more open about their identity? It can be anything.
Okay, so I'll just touch upon, firstly, I'll touch upon how accessible is reporting itself, right? So, if you see in the current regulations which focus on self-reporting and subsequent objective analysis, lack of subjective reporting options. For example, reporting on Instagram, the very button of reporting. how accessible is it for blind folks, right? How accessible is it for um, motor disabled folks, where it makes it hard to see harassment as not very apparent, where ableism is very subtle. For example, Twitter, right? So Twitter had this algorithm which would only recognize um, non-disabled, white, um, basically very compulsory, able-bodied faces, right? So how do we recognize this and call this out? Um, call this out, call this in, right? Um, uh, Again, Netflix had their website, which was inaccessible. So a mode of reporting by themselves accessible was usually click button options on Instagram. Navigation of menus are difficult, right? So yeah.
That's great. Uh, yeah, you do bring a very different opinion on this because you have been through that yourself. And yes, Damini ji, yes, go ahead, please.
So we are talking about only Instagram, Facebook, and this kind of platforms. But if you will see like other apps like Ghana and Urban Clap, these big companies, these big apps, if you go there, then if you want to select the gender, so there is so many apps are there. So you will see only two genders, male and female. There is no third thing, which is not there, like third gender or others. That column is not there. So that's all right.
Right. So I believe more apps can take the lead on that and make people feel more safe in their identities and not have to choose between the binaries. Patruni, would you like to
Definitely.
go next?
Yeah, one second. Definitely the urban clap kind of thing, which are having beauticians and other stuffs also. So what should I write there? I am a transgender. If I want some service, so what should I do? Definitely I can do female and it is okay. But the
Yeah.
person who is coming to me, if he is not comfortable after seeing me, I'm a trans woman, then
Right.
definitely it's a big issue. So definitely they should include it and make it inclusive.
Very good point. Very good point indeed. Uh, yeah, Patruni, we've been waiting. Has your technical issue been resolved? And we cannot hear you.
We want to hear you fix it.
Till Patruni comes back, Hitin, do you have any suggestions on
I
this?
agree to what Manak has said because many times when people comment on my pictures, so I think Instagram should have some something that they can see that it's not me who is at fault. So what they do, they block me to go live. So maybe they can do something about these people who comment, these people who spread the hate. I mean, other than listening to them, their reports, maybe they can see, somehow that who is at the fault. So I would say I totally agree with Manak because I am facing this. There is no option where I can say that why are I am being reported is them. So I think there should be something like that because and because of all this, I keep on getting blocked. Like on Instagram actually. So in my mind, this is what is in my mind right now. Yes.
Yeah. Do we have you back? Try saying something. Can you hear us, Patruni? You're still not audible. I would suggest not using your headphones if you're using any. All right. Till Patruni resolves the issue, we are going to move on to the next question. Um, so another stakeholder in such instances is the police and other redressal forums, right? Um, what will be a suggested reporting mechanism in cases of trolling, harassment, and abuse according to you? Like how can authorities that are responsible for protecting the law, who are responsible for protecting the citizens of their own country, how can they come in? What is and should be the reporting mechanism? Because a lot of times, even still, even today, even when Section 377 has been repealed, I don't believe that there is enough education for authorities, for people to deal with queer people, right? And not just queer people. There are so many intersections between queer people in other communities as well, and we have so many of those representatives here with us today, right? So, how do you think that if somebody is going through online harassment, online trolling, how do they go about reporting? Because in some way or another, trolling, harassment, be it online, it is a crime, right? So, how do we go about reporting it to the authorities? Is the question. Yeah, Manak, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I can. I think as you were asking this question, Gautam, something that was going on in my mind is that uh, as a larger queer community, we all know how laws open themselves up to being used subjectively to make somebody or the other more vulnerable than the general community, right? That's been done with 377, where there was a law which was about unnatural sex, quote unquote, but it was used to target only one community, right? And I think before we say this is what I think there is an important reflection and discussion to be had on what is the kind of larger legal framework that we want to bring on talking to regulate what can be said online, right? Because tomorrow it's going to come and bite us back in the ass. Uh, when we start saying something online is a criminal offense that can be reported, we need to be very exact and clear about uh, is it when you actually threaten violence that it becomes a crime? Is it when you actually just when you abuse somebody online, can that itself be considered a crime? Because there are various ways in which these kinds of open interpretable laws will then be used to target vulnerable communities back in any community. I'm not talking about India, I'm talking about across the world. This has been done. We are seeing it in many ways happening in India. So I think I absolutely agree with you that there is a role that a police mechanism and some kind of reporting with authorities getting involved to support somebody who's vulnerable needs to be there. But when we start getting into the criminal system, there are all these larger reflections that we need to do about what specific regulation, what specific actions online will be subject to police action, because otherwise we will end up creating regulation that will come back to actually haunt us as a community that is more vulnerable. Uh, I think that's what I wanted to just raise upfront. That's why I raised my hand in the beginning, because as we start thinking about reporting and laws, that is a larger question. I think that should be an entry point to this discussion.
Yeah, no, you definitely present a view of how it can be more degenerative than regenerative, I believe, and how if we do present some laws and if we do add them to the constitution, if we do add them to our constitution, how they can come back and then be misused, in fact. Uh, but at the same time, queer people face all different kinds of harassment online, be it misuse of somebody's private pictures, to just random faceless profiles coming in your comments and leaving hate comments, right? Now the intensity of these crimes can be, well, next to nothing to really huge, right? And I believe we also have friends who have been subjected to harassment online. I do personally have a lot of friends, and I also have friends who have at many points felt helpless of who to turn to when such harassment happens to them, right? Of who should they depend upon? Who do they, uh, kind of lie their trust on to get their uh, to get them justice, right? So that's kind of what we also want to talk about. I do agree that it does have its own repercussions. It does have its own goods and bads, but we do need to come up with, because yes, making oneself visible, doing stuff online as queer people, that's all good. That's really good that we are all doing it in some way or another. But at the same time, we do need to have next steps. We also need next steps from the government, not just queer conglomerates, not just queer collectives, right? So that's what we wish to discuss right now. Does somebody else would somebody else like to come up and talk more about what their expectations are, and what according to them would be the right process to go about reporting an online crime? No, would you like to take this?
I'm actually just going to reiterate what everyone else said. So it's also about repositioning the blame. Firstly, what Hiten said. Um, why am I at fault when I'm the one getting trolled and bullied and being called ugly or um specific um um aspects of my disability being highlighted. Right. Um, I feel like um definitely making the entire process accessible, um, centering disabled and queer voices, um, and not with a patronizing gaze, which is the main thing. Um, so, for example, many a times um, there's this pity gaze or inspiration porn gaze. Um, a very able-bodied, non-disabled case of even of reporting, even of having access to concepts such as um, decency and indecency. So we definitely need to. The main key point that I'm going to drive here is access. Like, how do we navigate our access? How do we be grateful for access? Um, how do we ensure access to everyone? Who, when we talk about disabled women, which women are we talking about? Right? Are we only talking about Samarna, upper caste, disabled women, or even disabled women within the DPA community? Um, there's always a ladder of privilege, right? Who are we acknowledging in our reports? Yeah, mainly that.
So I believe what you're trying to say is how accessible is reporting for people of all belonging to all sorts of backgrounds, right? Like uh, how easy or how comfortable does a queer person feel about going and reporting a crime, be it online or otherwise? So maybe we need more anonymous channels where we can report. Maybe we need to have a proper channel where we don't really have to go to the police station and report a crime, but we also need to have other helplines for queer people, more
Yeah.
anonymous channels for for queer people, right?
Also, I like to add one more point.
Right.
Also, it's also the aspect of um, it's not related to a technical concept like reporting, but like when do we realize that we are allowed to report, right? When do we realize that we are allowed to seek support? Because in a world where disabled folks are constantly told to hate their bodies, to consider their bodies ugly, unworthy, undesirable, what is the point where you become kinder to your own disabled for yourself? and seek help in that way. What is the point where you allow yourself to dissent, to be angry, uh, uh, in a way to, yeah, to be angry, right? That was the main realization that I had, where when I stopped trying to people please as someone who grew up to be a disabled woman, and when I learned how to be assertive, right? So yeah, that.
Yeah. I believe we haven't heard from Patruni in a while because they've been having some technical difficulties.
Hello,
Patruni, do you think you've resolved your issues
hello,
now? Yes, yes.
hello. Okay, great.
We can hear your magical voice now.
Great, thank you. So you might need to help me with the last question, because I have wanted to talk
Yes,
about the previous question. However,
yes.
I think I can kind of align both of them at once.
Right. So we're just talking about stakeholders. How first we talked about our roles in making the life better for queer people. Then we talked about social media and how and what social media platforms can do for queer people to make it a better, safe place for queer people. Now we're talking about how we can come up with a proper channel, a proper process for reporting crimes. you know, uh, Through policemen, through other authorities that are responsible for ensuring law enforcement. Like, how do we have a proper channel if we do face online harassment and trolling? How do we go about reporting it? And who do we depend upon to get justice for us?
Yeah. So let me quickly kind of bring up the point of share is like, those social media platforms are eventually kind of opening up things to kind of report. Like, I still remember Hitain was mentioning this, that like, when we go ahead and put a picture, and then there are a lot of trolls which are coming on the picture, and when we report, it's not the reporter who is it's not the people who are sharing hate getting the kind of I would say the shut, but it's the person who is putting it. Like, I still remember, when you report aquaphobia in the comment which you share below, talking about, okay, this is queerphobic, those get shut first, and then reported. It takes around ages for Instagram to realize, okay, this is something which is wrong, and then they kind of go ahead and take the course action. Now, one of the best thing which I kind of learned within the experience of either policy making or whatever is happening within the social media space, is that we need to give information, how to report it, whom to report it, and when to report it. And that those are the very three things which as a queer person we need to understand, firstly. Secondly, I know a couple of organizations, like one of the wonderful organization called as Yes We Exist, who is the idea of giving information to people when they see a hate crime happening on social media. So they take the advocacy, they help you to whom to reach out to. Like, if it's a television which is kind of abusing queer people, they have a channel. When there is Instagram, they have a channel. So it's a collaboration between organizations as well as the app developers to ensure that the grievances are taken in a far more direct ways, and there is a course of action. Half of these cyber spaces, or half of the cybercrime reports which are being there, they are not they don't get to resolution with the speed how a normal FIR being resolved. I still remember when somebody was being trolled in a certain social media. They went ahead and filed a case, and then it took a little bit of time for them to kind of realize and open up. So the speed has to kind of be the same for anything. Even if it's an assault on a social media, it's still an assault. And I think that's the seriousness which one has to take, and we need to constantly push for a better way of managing grievances, a better way of understanding how exactly social media space works, and accessibility, like whom to reach out, and one dedicated spot for queer people, or help specifically for queer people to kind of target anything, or kind of tell, okay, this is wrong, you better come and fix it. So I think those are some of the things which can happen as an organization, like the social media organizations should look into that perspective and collaborate with the queer organizations to ensure that they're giving
We
Yeah,
cannot hear you, Gautam.
I
Gautam,
guess
yeah.
I think I did mute myself. I did what most people do on Zoom these days, and don't worry, I'm not gonna be frozen like Patruni. Patruni, are you pretending to be frozen or are you actually frozen? No, I'm just kidding. I think she's actually frozen. I think the only person that we haven't had any input on this topic is Hiten. Hiten, would you like to say anything?
I would say yes, there should be some easy way to tell that who actually should be reported. There should be maybe anonymous way, or maybe somebody who can help us, to get the whatever happens with me. I got trolled a lot of time actually, so I don't know what to do. So I have ended up making another profile, so that if my this profile you get blocks or shut down, so that I can use another profile. But I think there should be something that I can talk to, or tell that this is what is happening with me, and other than me being the culprit,
Yeah.
they should look at it properly, because like everyone else, even I have the right to be myself on Instagram. So if I'm putting a picture of myself and people say, no, you are a man doing all this and whatever I do, even I have, this is my body, this is my life. Even if I'm putting a semi-nude picture, there are thousands, crores of semi-nude pictures already existing on Instagram. Why can't I be one of them? But Instagram, what do they do? They put my picture down, and they would say this, you are, I mean, this is sexual violence. So when these naked gym bodies guys, these guys, they put their picture, so that is not sexual violence, but I am doing it, that becomes sexual act. So I think there should be something which properly look at it, and not in a way of queer or straight, but in a human way.
I
There
believe
should
that's
be
also,
something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that's also like I believe it makes you feel discriminated against
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
because you see so many profiles around you, you see so many pictures around you, and they're all doing the same stuff that you're doing, but for some reason they're not getting reported. It's
Yes.
you because you're queer,
Yes.
and you make people feel threatened. You make people feel
Yes.
a certain kind of way, and which you don't really intend to make them feel, which is
Yes.
totally incited by their own minds and bodies. But for some reason, you are the one who's at the receiving end
Yes.
of the torture that
Yes.
these people, are inciting on
and
themselves.
also and also this happens because they report it. Because I have one more profile that is private account, same pictures when I posted there is not being reported, is
Yeah.
not getting off the Instagram. So this
Hmm.
happens on my official account, because I know
Yeah.
there are people who keep on reporting the it's like a group reports. When a lot of picture will report, they Instagram will take it off. So I think there should be something where my picture is not seen as a sexual act, where it is considered as art, like other,
Hmm.
or whatever, like it should be there.
Yeah.
So I but there is no way, there should be a way.
Totally. Totally. Correct. So basically, a way where we actually try to recognize the perpetrators, and
Yes.
we try to find out uh, who is responsible for what, and maybe
Yes.
more of a transparent uh, arena.
Yes.
But then that also
Yes.
comes up with a lot of you know branches, because it's
Yeah.
one thing. It's easy to say that, let's make this platform, let's make social media platforms more transparent. Let's let everybody be transparent. Let's reveal their identities and do stuff.
Yeah.
But then again, there is um, more branches to that. Can't really. It's
Yeah.
not
And
that easy to do
yeah,
as.
also I want to add this. If other genders, or these guys, I mean, a lot of guys that we see on Instagram, bodybuilders, if they can go sexual with their naked bodies, why can't we go like that? Even we
Correct.
have the right to present. I'm not saying that I want to go sexual, but what
Yeah.
if I want to?
Yeah. But what if I
If they
want?
can do it, why can't I? Yeah, but why can't I do it? Everyone should have equal right, but there is no
Why
equality.
should
This is what
boys
I am.
have
Yes.
all the fun?
Yes.
Just kidding. Yeah. Um, but yes, so I believe Patruni mentioned one of my favorite points throughout this panel discussion is how to go about reporting crimes. And you did mention a particular organization that helps you deal with
Yes.
such scenarios. So, my next question, the first was about what the police can do and how do we go about reporting crimes through the police. My next question is what role do NGOs and other queer organizations, queer collectives play to support queer people when they're going through stuff like that? I believe Patruni did have something to say on that, so I'm gonna roll back to you and divert this question to you. Yeah, you're not audible. It's okay. We'll come back to you once you have resolved your technical issues. Right? No, I would like to ask you how do you think how important and what role do you think NGOs and queer collectives and support groups play?
I think for me, what is most important is community.
Right.
Um, so, for example, through Revival, we've created support groups. Also, what is a safe space, right? A safe space always, the meaning of a safe space is never static. It always travels. What in the safe space to me might not be a safe space to you. Um, so, for example, we created imagined realities within a WhatsApp group of how we would like the world to be, how we would like a disabled utopia to be, right? So simple stuff like recognition with ability. Like, oh, you twirl your wheelchair too, I do that too. Or you tie a pink ribbon around your mobility aid too. Um, right, so recognition with that. And I believe community has a big role to play in creating systems of care, in kind of reclaiming and redefining system of care. So, for example, an example is that when we talk about image descriptions and video descriptions, um, we also have this interdependence role within the WhatsApp community where supposing one person who sends a photo about something doesn't have any spoons left. Spoons is another term for energy, right? In chronically ill disabled communities. So another person takes over the role of adding the image description. This is something what I've seen where interdependence and solidarity work out beautifully, right? Um, so I definitely say community. Um, and because community has made a lot of people, including me, realize my identity. Um, because I grew up in an environment which was very compulsorily heterosexual and able-bodied, where able-bodiedness was seen as an achievement. Um, where I was told that okay, you're born a girl, so you're automatically gonna grow up and date a cis man, right? I was never given the option of queerness. So, at the end of the day, when you realize you're queer, right, and when you're disabled too, there's a lot of questions in your mind about, do I deserve queerness? Do I deserve to be here? Right? Because this invalidation of you're not queer unless you explore in a certain way. Um, Unless you explore with a certain person of a certain gender, right? So even um, access to systems of exploration, to systems of dating, even they are limited. And they are disabled queer folk are kind of shunned away from that, right? So to sum up, is community in one word. Yeah.
Uh, I agree. That's a
Hello.
really nice point put forward by you because, uh, for instance, if I am a sexual harassment survivor, and if I go to a self-help group that is basically a collective of people who have also faced something similar in their lives, then obviously my first thought is not like I'm glad that there are other people. Obviously, I would never like other people to have gone through the same trauma, the same difficulties that I went through. But at the same time, it's kind of nice to know that you're not alone in this. It's also nice to know that there are other people dealing with the same stuff and coming out of it, dealing with their traumas, becoming stronger, sharing their stories. Because I believe there is power to stories, right? Which is why we are kind of here having this discussion in the first place, is because our stories have power to them. And that's a very nice point put forward by you, Nu, that that the role of community, the role of self-help groups is to provide you a sense of community, a sense of belonging. Uh, I would like to roll back to Patruni because we lost you earlier.
I hope I'm audible now.
Yes,
This
you
I'm
are.
living it. I'm living the fact that I'm getting, there's a problem with the internet. But having said that, I think, I would like to take this opportunity to tell uh, the importance of this particular discussion or where we are actually sitting as of this point in time. Because again, if you see this, having a conversation or, as a support group, you are going ahead and giving the information out itself is a huge kind of a thing. And I think the team who was involved in having this conversation was really wonderful in bringing the aspect of cyberbullying, or the aspect of cyberspace and how exactly it's not safe for multiple communities. Now, what exactly is the importance of an NGO is that, firstly, yeah, definitely they give you the space, they give you experiences which are in its own way, like, that you are not alone. You can listen to multiple stories happening with multiple people. With that, you also find out solutions and understand from the experiences of others. I think that is the really important thing or aspect which we need to do. And as a collective, like, once you're gathered by 10 or 15 people together, that gives you a little, a huge amount of energy for yourself to kind of fight or take up the fight. And I think that is what has is a part of the communities or the NGOs which are kind of doing. They are giving the information in the right space in the right time. They're ensuring that this person is not alone, and they are fighting for the person to get the justice. So it's like, it's if I go ahead and shout in front of a police station that I am being chased or I'm being doing this, they might not hear me. But if 10 or 15 people are coming together, that's making a huge amount of difference. I think that is what the NGOs or the community is doing in its own way. And secondly, it is also like, multiple NGOs working with the local spaces or the urban spaces, helps the urban people to kind of safeguard themselves. I still remember I was just reading an article before coming to this particular conversation that there were a lot of trans people, there were a lot of people from the urban or rural space in Hyderabad as well as in Telangana are being still charged or kind of booked under the names of 377, which is kind of outdated. And these stories are coming up offlate onto public spaces, because they are NGOs which are established in those small towns or villages, and they are the ones who are fighting for this particular cause. So I think that is the power of it, and that is what is ensuring that everybody's voices are heard, not as one but as a collective, and bring more visions of people onto the subject and ensure that there's a justice by the end of it. So I think, yeah, that is what is the benefit of having the NGOs with us, and that's what the work of an NGO should be doing in order to go ahead and ensure this, we are creating a safer space for all of us.
That's amazing. Really good answer. I really appreciate your answer. I would like to go to Damini ji now, and I would like to ask her as to what queer collectives and what trans collectives and what NGOs have done for you personally. Like, how have they supported you? What has your experience been with NGOs?
My experience is very good with NGOs, and definitely whatever Patruni told that if you go to police and shout that I have been chased or something, then it will not be heard. But even not even 10, 12 people, but at least the name of NGO, which is highly recognized in the local area and known, well known. So even the name of that at one representative from the NGO, if they will come with us, and that's what happened with me once. That was not related to internet, but yeah, definitely it was something which they were not. Police was not gonna hear me, so I went to NGO representative, and it was. Reported immediately, and I got the justice at the same day. So that effect is very much. And another thing I want to add here that yeah, we need a place where we can report online. Also, we can try. That's there too. But the sensitization of the people to whom we are going to report, that is also very much required. Like police should know that yeah, trans people are there. Police doesn't know, even half of the, more than half of the percentage of police doesn't know that section 377 is removed and what is the section 377. So that kind of police we are having in our country, and they don't know the difference between hijra and independent trans women
Yes.
also. So many things they are not educated enough about it. So that sensitization should be there, and after sensitization there should be very strict policies for police and other administrative places where we are going to report. So that policy should have some policies, like if this will be done by anyone who is working here, and if some queer person come to report it, then if you are not followed this rule, then you will be fired from the job, like it happens in the private sectors. So that's all I want to say at in this one.
All right. Hitan, is there something that you would like to iterate that hasn't been said already? Do you feel that NGOs have other roles, and would you like to tell us about them?
I think when we say NGO, it means that we have a support group who can help us when nobody is listening because they have kind of authority. And I personally did not report any crime like that actually. So, but I know a few NGOs in Delhi, and how they support a lot of people, how they give shelter to a lot of people, and even if their families are not listening to them, they listen to them, they try to help them. So I think some a place like that becomes home more than your real home when you don't have anything else to go.
The chosen family.
And they will, yeah, a chosen family, and also they will accept you the way you are, and if you have any kind of problem they will also try to resolve it in any which way. So I believe NGOs in these communities, they are very helpful, and they can also give you hope because there is somebody who can understand you.
Right. Manak, what are your opinions on this?
I mean, So yeah, I'm audible. As somebody who runs an NGO, actually, I'm of
Exactly.
course biased. I think uh, it might reiterate some of the things that have already been said, but I think systematically, what can NGOs or support groups do? One is, of course, the previous question was around the police and the role of the police and other authorities. I think many supportive laws, a cyber crime cell, many of these systems exist, right? I think the role of support groups or NGOs is to ensure that police and cyber cell systems understand the diversity of experiences and identities that need to access these laws, and how to then sensitively engage with people who are different from who they usually engage with. This is the work that women's organizations and women's groups have done for years about women being able to access law systems. And now we need to definitely have more and more people, more and more organizations opening that up and creating that kind of diversity training for these existing systems to be able to ensure that people are able to access the system safely. The other is something that we are doing, right? Like take the whole range of laws that right now, exactly what Zappi was saying earlier, that I don't even know what I can report and what I can't report when I'm facing this kind of violence and harassment online. So making sure that more and more community members, more and more groups working in the community know what are the laws that they can access, what is actually a reportable crime that can be reported to any existing system, making sure that awareness and that kind of confidence is there into our people, into our communities, to be able to report. I think that is the other work that NGOs do, and that's something that we are trying to do now in making sure awareness of laws and legal systems is there, and some wherewithal to access and demand that I be serviced by these agencies who are meant to protect my rights. Right, that's the other thing that I think NGOs can do. And other than that, I think just to take a step back and say overall, right, like this kind of reporting, all of that is one. But I think all of us as individuals and definitely as organizations, as NGOs, uh, have this role of talking more and more in public online spaces of what are the kinds of values that we should actually promote and hold dear when we are engaging with anybody online, right? I think education on how to say your piece online, how to not be hateful, what is the kind of value that I would like to prioritize when I'm in an online space, like that kind of education and awareness. Because right now I can create an anonymous profile and that gives me a lot of leeway in saying whatever the hell I want to whoever without really caring about what they feel or what impact it has. I think that kind of awareness and trying to sort of really prioritize and create a conversation around those values that we should all prioritize as a community, not just a queer community, but a community of people online. I think that is something, embedding that into school education, embedding that into more and more spaces is something that NGOs should definitely do, so that all of us become a little more mindful of not furthering hate when we are in online or on ground, any kind of space. I think those are the three things I think NGOs should do.
That's amazing, and I'm sure you're doing great work with your NGO, Manik. Thank you so much for sharing your opinion. Yes, Patruni, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add something. What Manak has said, it's said that whenever you are kind of a diamond cuts a diamond, or kaate se kaate koi nikalna hai, something like that. Where at the time when we see a lot of bullying happening on a one particular platform, the same platform can be used to kind of counter and kind of make sure that the platform is accountable. I will give you a small example about the same. Like when Clubhouse was initially launched, they were a support group of queer people who were actually the ambassadors of Clubhouse. So there was a group which was being created where queer people can have an active conversations. So what exactly happened was it has a good reach of following. It has people who are kind of coming ahead and doing it. And when somebody wanted to share their grievances to about Clubhouse or being abused on a Clubhouse, they come to this particular group, they have an active conversation, and then there are people who are actually taking this to Clubhouse and kind of telling it, approximately, this is what is wrong. I need to fix it right over here. Similarly, we also see that Zomato as well as Google, which has the LGBTQI plus labels, and systems going ahead and abusing it, restaurants going ahead and abusing it. It was again the Instagram which actually made things to kind of queer people came, they kind of actively shared that particular post which they're kind of going and doing, and then asking accountability of Zomato, or asking accountability of Google, going and giving a review on Google, which is Zomato, and making them understand. So this is one way of doing it as well. And I think majority of the NGOs who are kind of working or want to work in a cyberspace need to be online in the very first place. They can't go ahead and sit in a certain space and kind of think about making a
Yes.
change in a cyberspace. So I think that is one point which I want to add as well.
And that's a great point. I really appreciate you sharing your opinion. We're going to move to one of the last segments of this conversation, and one of the media platforms that has huge accessibility across the world and that affects the thought processes of millions of people around the globe is cinema. And in the recent times, Bollywood has seen a lot of queer movies, um,
Yes.
and which is kind of good and bad because people have their own opinions on the stories, the movies. Yes, a good effort nonetheless. But I would like to go to each one of you and ask you your particular opinions on stuff. I will start with Nu, and I would like to ask you about this particular movie called Margarita with a Straw. Um, and this Netflix TV show called Special. I don't know if you have watched it. Have you? No? Yes. So I would like to have your opinion and your thoughts on these two particular pieces of art. And do you feel good about them? Do you feel there is something that can be added to these stories? What is that one part? What are those parts that are still not made visible enough through cinema?
Okay. Uh, Mostly about special, I absolutely loved it. And I really I wish that I kind of saw my own gender and my own sexuality represented on screen in the same way, right?
Yes.
Everything else was perfect. Especially about the logistics of I'm sorry, that's my dog. Me water. Yeah. So especially the logistics of queer disabled love making, right? The
Yes.
various sexual communication and mandates that goes into it. Um, um, Showing it in such a descriptive and yet loving way, right? But that is one thing I loved about Section. The way that the main character fought for their freedom, that's really resonating with me. I kind of spent every day living with a disabled body and asking for my agency, right? So that stood out for me. Now in Margarina, yes, it was like one of the only movies released in India where the question of disability and sexuality was raised. Um, while I also loved the movie, there was a lot of femme, queer, and disabled representation. But at the same time, for example, I walk with a crutch. I'm physically disabled. I'm not on a wheelchair. Right? There's a difference. I do not have cerebral palsy. Um, but I had a classmate. It released when I was in class 11, I think. And I had a classmate who, in a passing comment in conversation, just commented that I remind him of Margarita with a straw. You know, so this common trope of clubbing disabled people together, right? Um, this thing of seeing disabled people as unidimensional, not as unique, nuanced, lived experiences. Um, so that was one thing, right? Also, I've heard from my community that the emphasis on sexuality, too much of emphasis on sexuality. So the movie had showed the sexuality side of stuff and completely ignore the actual lived experiences of a woman living with cerebral palsy. So that was one thing. And the other thing was having access to go to go abroad for education, right? Um, Having that privilege as someone who's, I think Leila in the movie went to New York for the education. So having that access again, having the privilege of escaping your current environment of ableism, right? Um, so I felt that the movie, while it was amazing, it also represented um, a limited number of voices, and because of that, we need to have more movies on disability and queerness made. Like there never be enough movies on disability and queerness, right? So, for example, if anyone from Netflix is listening, for example, an anthology, on disability and queerness with different genders, different castes, different sexualities, right? So we are clubbed all together as, yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. Continuing on the same line, I would like to ask Damini ji next. There have been a couple of movies that have involved transgender protagonists in the past couple of months. One of them being Lakshmi, the other one being Chandigarh Kare Ashiki. Um, what are your thoughts if you have seen these movies, Daminiji? If you can just summarize this in 2 minutes, that would be great because the
Yeah,
session is about to, and I still have a lot of questions to ask. So
yeah.
if you could just summarize your thoughts about these two movies in just 2 minutes.
Yes, so I don't want to say much about Lakshmi movie because whatever are reviews and other stuffs like the teaser and other stuffs I seen, that was really scary and I really don't like these things. So I don't appreciate the Lakshmi movie at all. And another thing like Chandigarh Karyasiki, that's a great movie, very nice movie. Means first time on uh, mainstream movies, which is like not a art movie or something. So this movie is very very nice, but few points are missing there. Most of the points are in two and somehow 2 hours and few minutes covered, but main point that they showed like while transitioning, the female actress is going only to one beauty cosmetic thing or something like that, and nothing else is shown. So it's not only about beauty or looks to be a transgender woman or girl. So there are so many processes like psychiatrist, then your treatment, then your operation, then after all these things, your name change and everywhere, like all the identity cards and everything. So this part was missing. So it's shown in a very small section that the male actor is just searching that what exactly is transgender girl. So that was good, but it was very short. It should be a little elongated and elaborated in a way that people can understand. Okay, transgender means male to female or female to male is not a very easy process. It's not a very easy decision. So
Correct.
it takes a lot. So that thing was missing, but it's a great movie and it's a great initiative. I really thank Ayushmann Khurrana and yeah, the female actress, I guess.
Yeah, he
And
always takes up very challenging roles.
yes. What's
Yes.
the name? I forgot it.
Yeah. I would move on to. I would like to move on to Hiten now, and I would ask him if he has seen this movie called "Everyone's Talking About Jamie." Have you watched that movie?
No, no, but while listening to Damini ji, I was thinking about the Danish Girl. If you guys have seen that
Oh
movie,
yes, absolutely. Yes.
yeah, a beautiful movie. how they shows that how the partner is also appreciating and supporting, and I have also seen other like Hindi series, this Four More Shores or Made in Heaven and Sex Education and Sabrina and Elite. There are multiple series on it, and I would say series are doing better than the movies, because when you look at the movies, like Bollywood especially, they show it as if queer is special, but when you see in series, it's normal. I mean, it's like everyone else. So
Right.
when you see, this, if you have seen this Euphoria, if you have seen Euphoria series, they don't see queer as somebody special. Queer is like everyone else, So I think this is what I like about series more, because they do not tell that, oh, look at this person. This person is queer.
Yes.
They don't do it. So I think when everyone else is seeing these young, I teach at various colleges. So when these young people are seeing, they should not see that, oh, being queer is special. No, being
Hmm.
queer should be like everyone else. So I think series are doing better than the movies.
Yeah. Manak, I'd like to roll you in on this conversation, and I'd like to ask you, what's your opinion about the recent Indian movies? I believe you have watched some of the recent movies. Have you? Badhai Do and Kapoor and Sons, Dostana. And I want you to focus more about what this social media platform is still not doing. Like, what is still missing for gay people specifically, since you belong to that group? What do you think can be done there?
So actually, I think popular culture and media, movies, etc., have had their own trajectory from coming to laughing in some way, normalizing, talking about certain identities and certain kinds of people, then coming to more sensitive portrayal, and then now coming to a little more 3D fleshed out, non one dimensional kind of portrayal of different kinds of queer characters. Right? Usme they have hits and misses everywhere, and I feel that, of course, one has to judge a film on how good or bad it is. But it's nice that they are trying, and that there is more representation now, and it's not absolutely on the face of it cringeworthy like it used to be earlier, right?
Hmm.
I think on the other hand, I think social media, OTT platforms, of course, like Nathan was saying about the different series that exist. But I think also places like TikTok, when it was there, and Instagram Reels, etc., have actually now created an explosion of the kinds of queer expressions and identities that are now available to a lot more people who might not even be watching these movies.
Right.
Right? So this the normalizing of men doing drag for fun, the normalizing of somebody, a male person doing makeup in a certain way, different kinds of influences. So there is some space for everyone, and that is where also there is some hate for everyone. But there is some space and some degree of acceptance for a whole range of behaviors, identities, expressions that have now become available to people. And I think the
Right.
social media space, in the short reels and influences, etc., are exploding in terms of giving us much more interesting ways of looking at queerness than films are able to give just by the format. And so I think films have a role to play. We still have to come to a place where a mainstream Bollywood hero starring film can become, really absolutely nice. That,
Yeah.
but I think social media is a more developing, exciting, interesting space for me, which I look to because more young people are influenced by that than by films in today's day and age.
Right, that's amazing. But Truni, how do you feel about the lack of movies that involve drag artists, drag queens as protagonists? And how do you feel
Yeah.
about an Indian queen finally making it to the world stage of uh, RuPaul's Drag Race universe and making it to the universal, not universal actually, the global singing competition?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with that first. The queen who was been involved is definitely a huge amount of inspiration because they have started it, and they kind of fought consistently to kind of go to that particular position, and it's a huge opportunity which is kind of lined up, after I think Rani Kohinoor stepped onto that particular platform. I think the new vision of seeing drag, Indian drag, has been definitely kind of changed and altered.
Yeah.
And now coming back to the movies, now there are two things which I kind of I have a problem and I don't want to fix it, or
Okay.
I have a I know how to fix it, but I don't have the access to fix it. So these are the two different confusions which I always have when I seeing a movie. Now the biggest problem is like it's quite simple. Like a trans person or trans woman can't play the life story of Beyonce. So why but whereas Beyonce can do that of a trans person. So if you just alter the statements, you would understand that how privilege of being a cis person is and how privilege being of a trans or non-binary person is. And definitely there's a huge amount of representation and casting which need to be done. And we can't give excuses that we don't have trans actors. There's a list of 30 to 40 people who are actually going and performing, getting national awards in India, and then we can't complain that oh, we don't find a trans woman to play a trans woman's role. So that is something which need to be fixed. And also as a queer person, or a person who has been developed with lot of I would say issues, or knowing about a lot of things, we should not also take films as seriously. I think we don't have to fight each and every time somebody is kind of going ahead and doing it. Like yesterday or day before yesterday, I was watching this wonderful trailer of Ranveer Singh about I think it's Jayesh Bhai Jordar, and I was triggered with one particular sentence which was used in the entire film, in the entire trailer. Uh, as a person, as a layman, it doesn't might have affected, but as a person who is going through a gender dysphoria time and again, those words are something which kind of pops into the heads immediately. So I think it's not always it's not always we should take films seriously, but it's always the representation which need to be put in a proper way. It's a long way to go. We can't fix the casting things right over here. And at least Bollywood came this long, this far. I'm talking about South India, which half of the movies like RRR or any other movies which are kind of coming, Pushpa and all that thing, which still sells toxic masculinity. And I think that is a problem which I need to fix in my own space. So I think those are some of the things which I believe in, and I don't take film seriously. I just believe in the work of art, and if a film has the art, that is something which I'd be hooting for. And yeah, drag queens, please hire them. They can play any kind of a role if you want. And I can tell you that definitely drag queens can there were drag queens who were in cinema. There are people who played the roles of heroine's mother, being
Yes.
being in an attire. So I think that is something which needs to be revived, and lot of diverse different drag has to come in picture. Like uh, time and again, I and Hitin, we both will be kind of agreeing with the fact that time and again we are told that this is not a certain way of doing drag. So
Yes,
those things
yes,
has to
very true.
change. Those things has to change. More
That is
visible.
actually that is actually my next question for specifically Patruni and Hiten, is about the contention that there is regarding cross-dressing in drag in media at times. It is portrayed as a matter of comical reference with gender-colored remarks. How do we think such content impacts a queer person, closeted or proudly open, either? How do you think that affects a person's mentality?
I think Hitin, you can chime in as well. Feel free. So I
Okay.
think drag performers are visible PPTs, if I could say it in this way, in a far different way, where we actually play our genders, perform our genders to kind of ensure that we are giving you the is giving you the definition of gender and how exaggerate can go. Like you don't have a definition of it. People can be genogender, people can be somebody who is either gender fluid or gender non-binary. So we become the visible canvas of showing
Yes,
people that there's no
yes, yes.
definition. So yeah, I will just I'll just stop over there.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say when we become drag, we don't think it intentionally that we are doing drag. We just express ourselves, and how it affects people, it affects them a lot. So I use it because it is effective. So what I do, I actually I teach at various colleges. So whenever I go to my classes, I go in my characters. So it's like if I'm teaching history of costume, I will become Cleopatra. Or if I'm teaching
Wow.
some other subject, yeah, I will go as a character because I know drag is very impactful. So I use that energy, I use that impact. And when I go like this in my class, then people will come to me, oh, sir, I want to talk to you. And they will tell me they are from this spectrum. So I think this is very effective. And other than saying that this is entertainment, I think drag is life changing.
That's amazing. And it is a phenomenon now. Like, who thought that drag queens would be superstars? Because let's face it, like, drag queens are superstars today.
Yeah. I want to add one more point. When we are here in Cyberblog India, I mean, in Patruni, we are here. So we are somebody who are not like usual men. And also we get invited to so many other places. Like people call us for influencer meet or maybe guest of honor, something like that. So when people look at us, that oh, somebody like this has been invited to this space. So when they will see somebody else who is a effeminate kid, they will look at them. They won't make fun because they will just mind map. They will do the mind mapping. They will see, oh, somebody like this, feminine, was also invited as a guest of honor somewhere. So this is how we are also, bringing the change. So I think drag is more than just the art form. Drag is the change-making energy. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the last segment of this panel discussion, I think through the discussion that we've had, I think we all can agree that the role of media in developing queer positive environment and social change for inclusivity has been tremendous lately. And with OTT platforms, social media, Pride Month celebrations, everything, we make ourselves visible, we make ourselves powerful, and that in turn gives the community more power, right? But in one single line, I want to know from all of you, just one line, I want to know from all of you, that what do you think can be done further? What do you think, according to you, it can be? Hi, my dog is here. Come here. Yeah, what do you think, according to you, are the steps in this? What do you think it can be for your particular community or in general? But just in one sentence, if you could summarize what you see as the next step to be done. We have been making ourselves visible. We have been putting content out on social media. We have been talking about our issues. We have been putting our stories out there. But what do you think is the next step for you? Starting with Damini ji. In one sentence.
Yes, we should be in one sentence. Okay, so what I will say in one sentence is like we should be promoted by media everywhere possible.
That's great. More visibility for all of us. Hey, then, you next.
Yes. I would say more and more real life sensitization.
All right. More real stories, more sensitization towards
Yeah.
actual real stories.
No. I want to say more and more real life sensitization means we can go out in public like this because we are sensitizing when we go out like this. More freedom to go out. So more and more real life sensitization.
Right. No, you're next. One sentence, please.
More storytelling, more unhiding the discipline.
All right. Manak, you're next.
I think shifting the onus of safety from the individual to the platform in this particular context is, I think, what we should all get behind.
Nice. Patruni, we'll end with you.
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what we have to do. We have to speak out loud. That's it.
Amazing. So at this point, I think we come to the end of this
I
panel
would
session.
also like to add a really quick point. Speak up, yes, but also like speak up, speak in, speak out. Because not everyone can like speak up in the communication sentiment. Yeah.
That's an amazing point put forward. And I'm so humbled to be a part of this panel discussion. But with this, we have to sadly come to the end of this panel discussion. I can talk to you all for hours and hours because you guys are so interesting and so good to talk to. But thank you all for this session. It was a very insightful conversation over the last few hours, and I'm sure our audience has learned a lot of new things. You can approach each one of us through a DM. That's all it takes. If you want to share your stories, if you have questions, worries, anything, vexations, anything, you can just drop a DM and ask us anytime. We'll always be available and help you out with anything you want. But please be humane and do not trigger one another. If you liked the session or its parts, it would be available on the Cyberblog India's social media handles. Please do share and help us spread the word. Once again, thank you all so much. And I request my co panelists to add anything as a final note or remark if they wish to. And then we'll just end the conversation.
Yes, so thank you so much, Hiten. Uh, you are a very good moderator and very interesting. Sorry, Gautam and Hiten and Patruni always losing the voice, but we enjoyed it a lot. And Manak, definitely, you are doing a very good job. I can't give a say, what you are doing. So it's out of my word. And no, you are so graceful and you are putting everything so effortlessly that it is inspiring. So thank you so much, Gautam, for being the best moderator ever in my life.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Wow.
And on behalf of the panelists and the Cyberblog India team, thank you, everyone. Before we say goodbye for the day, there is an important message that the Cyberblog India team, from the Cyberblog India team, that I would like to read out to you. Cyber crimes can happen with anyone, be it us or you. Irrespective of how difficult the situation seems right now, please do not give up. There is always a solution. Please seek help and reach out. There are so many organizations and support groups that can help you, and it is not just us. But do not give up. Remember that
Yes.
even if the heaven were to fall apart, we will still be there for you. Thank you so much, everyone. It has been a privilege to moderate this session. I hope you have a lovely evening and a great weekend ahead.
Thank you
Bye
so
bye.
much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.